Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Johanna Miller, Energy and Climate Program Director at the Vermont Natural Resources Council, here for our weekly climate dispatch at the beginning of the 2022 legislative session, joined by my colleague Lauren Hierl, and excitingly joined by State Representative Becca White, a member of the House Transportation Committee, which is a very critical committee when it comes to climate. So we are really excited to be bringing you our first installation of the dispatch for 2022, focusing in on the transportation sector. As you know, the largest pollution, the sector that contributes most to our greenhouse gas emissions in the state of Vermont. So we are very excited to have Representative White here today talking about the recent introduction of the Transportation Innovation Act. I'm going to turn it over to Representative White in just a second, but also just to say that, as you know, you've been following, the Climate Council has been doing its work, transportation being a huge focus. I've been helping to lead that effort. You also know that we have a big gap in the Climate Action Plan now because of the uncertainty and potential long-term demise of the Transportation and Climate Initiative. We are getting back to work, looking at ways to fill that gap through other big policy, regulatory levers, et cetera. We'll be keeping you abreast of that. In the meantime, it's really important that in 2022, with this unprecedented influx of federal dollars, that we do our part on many different fronts when it comes to climate mitigation, adaptation, and resilience. But in the mitigation space, a clear and deep focus on transportation is really critical. And that's what this year's Transportation Innovation Act is doing for us. It's really exciting. We're going to be looking forward to helping push it over the line. And Representative White is going to give us the high-level overview of what's in this really important bill. And we look forward to keeping you abreast of this. And we're going to be leaning on you for bringing it over the line too. So Representative White, tell us about the TIA.
Well, thanks, Joey, and thanks, Lauren. I'm Representative White, and I'm from Hartford, Vermont. And fun fact, it's great to be on the Transportation Committee from Hartford because we have the most road miles of any town in the state. Little tidbit. So the Transportation Innovation Act is building off work that we did last session with a bill called the Transportation Modernization Act. So slightly different word for the second go. And that bill, H94, was meant to catalyze the administration who brings us the transportation budget, or the T-bill, every year, and show them what the priorities were for a group of transportation committee members around climate and transportation together. So showing them what we were interested in, starting the negotiation early. And that was a huge success last session. So we want to do that again in 2022, knowing both that we have the Climate Action Plan now to lead on. So big kudos to Joey, who helped us work on this bill throughout the for the pre-session as we incorporated their draft recommendations. And we also have the federal money that is just like raining down when it comes to infrastructure funding. So couple of pieces to the bill. The first thing to know is that electrification of vehicles, buses, fleets, that's a key component to the bill. It includes funding for the new electric vehicle incentive program, as well as funding for electric vehicle charging stations. If you're familiar with the levels that come with charging stations, it's primarily focused on supporting level 2 charging stations with a grant program for municipalities, schools, independent schools, and businesses. And then there's also a section around the level 3 charging, which is those fast chargers you might see off like the highway or in a large business. And those charging stations already have a requirement to be within 30 miles of every Vermonter or 5 miles from every exit. So building on that set of recommendations and adding some funding to it. A really key part of the bill that I know both VNRC and VCV, you're ahead of the curve on, is the equity piece. So equity when it comes to transportation for us means supporting programs like Mileage Smart, which helps lower income Vermonters get into high efficiency vehicles. It means Replace Your Ride, which is helping them switch to those high efficiency electric vehicles, buses, public transportation, and then e-bike incentives, all of that good stuff. To just list off some other key pieces, we have some micro transit incentives with a grant program. So if you want to know about the rural Uber that I feel like I pitched that in every, we were like, what is that? That's a part of the bill. We've got a pedestrian safety pilot. We've got complete streets, so trying to support pedestrian and bike travel to a greater extent. There's a lot in this bill. And the final thing I'll end on is commuter rail. Is a commuter rail study. So every angle of how we get from point A to point B is addressed in this bill. So that's my high level. I drove you through the bill.
In your electric vehicle. Love it. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for that overview. Huge priority for VNRC, VCV, we know for, the Climate Advocacy Network in general. So really appreciate the leadership on getting that together. It's an exciting bill. So excited to hear that there's 60 co-sponsors on that as it was introduced, an amazing set of allies. And we will, in the coming weeks, because we're back to our weekly climate dispatches, go into more detail on many of the other priorities. You'll be hearing about the Clean Heat Standard, the Environmental Justice Bill, massive investments we need to make this year in weatherization, municipal efficiency, climate workforce, and more. So stay tuned for all of that. But we always want to wrap these up with a call to action. So this week we've got two. First of all, check out that bill. We'll put the link in to the Transportation Innovation Act. If your representative is a co-sponsor, take a moment to thank them. This is a really exciting bill, really critical to climate success this year. So let them know that you are aware that they signed on and that you're excited and want this bill to move. The other call to action, because we know that to move the huge things we need to move on climate this year is going to take all of us. Send this dispatch out to 2 friends, encourage them to sign up to get these weekly updates so more Vermonters can know what's happening on climate and how you can get involved. We'll be back with you next week. Thank you again, Representative White, for all you're doing. Thanks, Joey. Have a great weekend, everyone. Happy 2022. Exciting times and opportunities. So let's capture the momentum and go forward. Thank you all. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Thank you.
Well.